Hello, my name is Gail Seiler, and I'm with betrayalprojectusa.org. I'm honored to be here on behalf of the organization. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, medical crimes, and honoring those who are medical crime victims and pursuing justice for these crimes committed under the guise of public health. In this case, it will be COVID-19. You can learn more about our work, view victim stories, and put in your own story, or get involved or support our mission by visiting our website, betrayalprojectusa.org. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, X, which is formerly Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and Spotify by searching Betrayal Project USA, or we're also on Facebook. We have a private group on Facebook. You can search Betrayal Project USA or go to our website and click the link for the desired social media platform. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Debbie Smith, whose husband, Andy, was killed in a Pennsylvania hospital by COVID protocols. Debbie, thank you for being willing to
Thank
tell
you
your
for
story.
having me.
Of course, yeah. And you've told your story on a few platforms, so this is good. Or Andy's story, really. Start off by telling people who Andy was.
Well, Andy was a 64-year-old man, the father of three children. Um, he was born with cerebral palsy, but that never stopped him. He had his own landscaping um, business, raised trees and shrubbery and mowed lawns, and he provided for our family. And our youngest daughter, Sarah, um, Andy's dream was always to, from the time he was a teenager, he wanted to adopt an Asian daughter. And we went on to have two biological children, Zach and Katrina. And then we adopted, when we were almost in our 40s, from a little girl from Cambodia. And he just loved Sarah. I mean, he loved all the children, but um, he was very active. He loved to share about Jesus, and would reach out to just anybody and just share the love of Christ with them.
Yeah,
Um,
and how long were you and Andy married?
it was 34 and a half years.
Yeah.
This year it would have made 39.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful. So, talk a little bit about, you know, when COVID first hit in 2020. Um, I mean, some people knew something was wrong, some people didn't. Um, how did you all? Because you're in Pennsylvania, right?
Hmm.
So how were things in Pennsylvania when? I mean, I know that was one of the states that
They
they
closed
locked down
everything down,
everything. Yeah.
churches, everything.
So how did you guys get through like that first beginning? Were you afraid? Did you just take precautions? Did you know it was kind of something was up?
We weren't afraid. We weren't afraid. I think we tried to live as normal lives as we could.
Yeah. Well, and you guys were kind of world travelers too, so like
Hmm.
when you go to other countries, you're used to seeing like diseases and things. I mean, yeah, like
Hmm.
stuff. Um, so at some point, at some point, Andy got sick. Were you both sick, or just he
We
got?
were both sick. I was actually sicker than he was.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would be in bed, and he went hunting,
Oh.
was deer season, and he was hunting with my son. My son noticed that he wasn't himself, but just never thought of COVID. And I took ivermectin and all the different protocols. Friend of ours gave it to us,
Hmm.
but Andy was more lax at taking the stuff. But
Yeah.
I did, and so I mean, I
Difference.
only have one kidney, so but I was, other than being extremely tired in that, um I was okay then.
Yeah,
So
you recovered.
mhm.
And Andy didn't. So when did so he went hunting. It was deer season. When did he go and try to get any like treatment somewhere, or how did he end up going from I'm
No, he didn't go, uh but a few days that he would have went hunting on a Monday, and then like latter part Wednesday or Thursday, I guess it would have been. I had been at a doctor appointment, and the ironic thing was I went into the doctor appointment, checked in, and when I said I had had symptoms, they made me go to the car
oh.
and have a call from the car. So prior to me leaving for the doctor appointment, um, I didn't. I mean, Andy and I always, whenever we left, we always said goodbye and gave a hug or a kiss. And I don't remember him being anything that concerned me.
Yeah.
And when I got home, he had the TV on. He was very much a history buff, and he was watching something on TV. And I said, can you change that, Andy? And he started mumbling like mathematical equations.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I asked him again. He repeated the same thing. Then I called my son, who was away on business, and I'm like, something's wrong with dad. We thought he had a stroke,
mhm.
but it wasn't that. And then he started where he couldn't breathe. Well, I had to call for help.
It was hypoxia. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
The hypoxia.
And so he was, I mean, his oxygen saturation was down in the 50s. How he
Oh.
ever was even sitting up. And he actually walked over to the stretcher to get into the ambulance. So, and then the ambulance was in my front yard for probably a half hour, 45 minutes. I'm not sure what they were doing, but it was scary. Why are you have my husband in the ambulance and aren't taking him to the hospital?
And
So
that was on the 9th of December 2021,
I
right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And so they took him, so
Then they
eventually.
took him to the ER, and and then I got there shortly after, they triaged him, and they put a candle out, for him for breathing, and he was doing so much better. And I mean, he was talking fine and everything.
Mhm.
So, but when the Hershey Medical Center is where they train doctors, and when the resident came in to talk to us, he said to Andy, Mr. Smith, you were unvaccinated, so there's nothing we can do for you. So they basically cursed him from the get go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And I just didn't care for that. And I asked that he not come back in the room, that doctor. So, but then they talked to Andy and said, well, you want to breathe, don't you? Well, who wouldn't say yes when when you're struggling to breathe? And that's how they gaslighted him. He was having problems breathing, and they're like, well, you want to breathe, don't you? And then they wanted to put a ventilator on him yet that night. They wanted to take him up to intensive care, put him in a ventilator. I called, and the other thing that they did was they really divided us as husband and wife, you know. And so, anyhow, I called a friend of mine whose husband had the protocols done similar, although he wasn't in the hospital. Um, and she, she had warned our church what to do and not to do if you find yourself in the hospital. And she talked to Andy and said, Valerie said, Andy, you don't want to be on a ventilator. And so then he refused then when the doctor came down and he refused. So I think that's the time they said, well, you want to breathe, don't you?
Yeah.
So I was allowed to, I'm not even sure if they ever even tested him. I know I had had COVID. They never tested me, and I
Hmm.
could be in with him. And by that time, I was pretty much over it. I think I was over it. But I could be with him as long as I wanted to in the ER. But once he went upstairs to intensive care, I was not allowed to see him. And it was probably a week or two that I wasn't allowed to see him. And my sister had a friend who worked at the medical center as a nurse. She told my sister, tell your sister that they're now allowing COVID patients to have visitors. Had she not told my sister, I don't know when I would have got in. I was never personally told.
That they okay.
And I have a friend whose daughter at the time was working as a transport person in the hospital. And she said all along they were leaving people into the COVID unit. What they did was um, they they kept those of us who were unvaccinated away from our loved ones. Those
Yeah.
that were vaccinated, they
They let
could
them in.
walk all, I was told they could walk all over the hospital, get on the elevators and everything. But because my husband wasn't vaccinated, they wouldn't leave me up to see him.
Mm.
So I got to see him. And then Christmas time, at Christmas, I would go in like every evening at a certain time. My neighbors knew, oh, Debbie's going into the hospital to see Andy. And Christmas Eve, I did my normal going in to see him. I would have to check in at the welcome center, give his name and my name, then they'd call up to the floor and say that I was coming, and then I'd have to garb up and everything. Well, that wasn't, like I said, Christmas. I didn't have to do that anymore, but I did previously. And so at Christmas Eve, I said, I'm here, and they're like, oh, well, just wait because the COVID deaths have increased. So the only you can go upstairs, but you have to look at through the window to see him.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was like, oh, but I thought, hey, at least I get to see him. I got uh the intensive care was on the second floor. So I got on the second floor, went to the waiting rooms where a nurse would meet me. It was another administrator or something from the hospital, something. And she said, oh, we've changed our policy. You can't go to see him now. I mean, that was in that same time period.
Like
You know, I checked in as usual. And then they said, oh, well, we're sorry, but the protocol has changed and now you
right.
can't go to see him. This was Christmas Eve.
Visitation protocol changed. Merry Christmas, right? Like
Yes.
terrible.
So, um, anyhow, I confronted the person and I said, you mean to tell me COVID began in 2020? This is now 21. You
Hmm.
mean to tell me there's no way I can communicate with my husband on Christmas Eve? And they said no. So, and I mean, they had cameras in the rooms, but they
Yeah.
didn't want you to see what was going on.
Right.
So,
And was Andy on event or off the vent?
yes.
He was on event at this time.
No, he was on and he continued to be on a vent till he died.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was he at any point when you were allowed to visit? Was he off the vent, or only when he was on the vent?
He was only on the vent.
Okay.
So, I mean, in the
So what?
very beginning, the kids and I would get together at my son's house and we would FaceTime Andy and
Yeah.
we would have to call in, talk to the nurse, his nurse, and get her to set the phone up for FaceTime.
Hmm.
And my daughter-in-law's an RN. And she actually had worked in, not at that time, but she had worked in intensive care. And we knew what time, nurse shifts were. So we always called after. And sometimes you would wait forever, till they would get you with a phone with Andy. And one time he had a nurse. I'm not sure if she was a foreign nurse or I don't know. You don't want to hear what I called her because I don't usually use the word and I shouldn't use it on the recording. But she was awful. This nurse was awful. And my kids got a apparatus to hold the phone in front of Andy. Um, because with him being handicapped, it was hard to hold the phone.
Yeah.
And so they got an apparatus that it was in front of him, that he could talk in. Well, that was when he had the CPAP.
Yeah.
And he kept knocking the CPAP off because he was trying to, you know, use this to FaceTime us. And the one nurse that night, um, after we were done talking and I left my son's house and came home, she called me with Andy's phone, not the hospital phone, Andy's phone, and said to me, Mrs. Smith, you're not going to be able to talk to your husband again because you really bothered your family really bothered him.
Mm.
She goes, what was it? I forget if it was his breathing something um wasn't right. And his temperature went up. I mean, you can't make a temperature go up by talking to him.
Right.
Blood pressure maybe, but
Right.
yeah, it was the temperature. And I mean, I'm not that dumb, and she was very, very nasty. She should have even been using Andy's phone.
That's true.
She shouldn't have even been using his phone, to call me. So,
That's true. When you said earlier in the beginning, you said they really divided husband and wife. What were some of the things that they did to do that?
well, it was that they said to Andy and zeroed in on Andy and said, "Well, you want to breathe, don't you, Mr.
Mm.
Smith?" And yet Andy and I had talked about what we would do if we were faced with that situation.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. Okay. What are some of they gave him quite a few medications actually. Um, what are some of the incentivized drugs that they gave him?
fentanyl, morphine, um, just the same drugs that they gave everybody,
Did did he get
So,
remdesivir?
yes, yes.
Um,
And
and
they said he was going to be in a study.
oh, really?
Hmm. We never heard anything more about that, but
Yeah, I was going to say
they
because
said
when you're in a study, they have to follow it through.
they never did. They never
That's
did.
interesting.
Mm,
That's interesting.
mm.
Okay, so they said he was going to be in a study. I need to
And
make a
I did ask for ivermectin and
note.
can't say it, hydrochloroquine. And I even said to the doctor, I'm willing to talk to my lawyer and get um, something that says I will not hold them responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And they still wouldn't allow me to do it. And I had got the PO for Andy,
Mhm.
um, through my lawyer. And I mean, it was kind of getting really close to where, they were going to vet him and stuff. But he was conscious enough to
Mhm.
sign it. And I was in one night, and the RN was, taking care of him and everything. And then she began cleaning off the windowsill,
Mhm.
and there was different papers and stuff. And she found this one paper, and she said, "Oh, well, you might as well have this." And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" It was the legal document to that I was his POA. They
Okay.
never put it on his chart.
Wow.
It was just treated like it was laid on the windowsill, and it was witnessed and everything. That should have immediately went into the
In his
chart.
chart. Yep, in his chart.
So um, so the nurse said to me, "Well," and she stuck it in one of the infectious control plastic bags,
Mhm.
and she said, um, "Well, you might as well just take this home." So the next day I called the lawyer. He goes, "That needs to be in the chart."
Yeah, exactly.
So I took it in the next day, and I gave it to the nurse, and I watched her put it in the chart. So I knew it was in there. But I mean, something of a legal document like that, they were so frivolous with.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us through um you asked for ivermectin, you were declined. Did you ask for
Mhm.
anything else? Or was that
What was the other one? What was the?
was it hydroxychloroquine?
Well, that
Budesonide.
too.
Budesonide.
Femicide. My son asked for
Budesonide.
that because he was reading up, and he said,
Yep.
"Mom, that would really help," and they refused that too.
Interesting. Yeah,
So they
that saved
refused
lives.
that.
It's Dr. Richard Bartlett's treatment saved
Hmm.
lives. Well, that's interesting.
And
Well,
then the night before Andy died, my kids wanted a prayer vigil. So we had a prayer vigil, and I was in with him during the time. And the I don't remember if she's a nurse practitioner or physician assistant. They're basically pretty much the same.
yeah.
And I talked to her, and then his sister was on the phone, and I always say she's like a pit bull. She's a little more forward than what I was at the time. I'm a lot more
Mhm.
different now, but she said to this physician assistant, "So you tell me that my brother is going to die. Why can't you try ivermectin? What's
Mhm.
it going to hurt?
Right.
It's either going to help or it's not."
Right.
And she said, "Well, we do have it in our pharmacy, but we use it for other things. And we don't, that's not part of the protocol." So they had it there.
Mhm.
And so she said, "Well, I'll have to talk to the attending doctor." So the next day when I went in, no, I got an update by the doctor. And they would call you in the morning, give you an update how he was doing and everything, and how the night was. And she said, well, I said to her, you know, "Why can't you give him ivermectin?"
Mhm.
Then she said to me, "Well, you can call your lawyer, and you can have him talk to our lawyers at Hershey Medical Center and get a court order." It was too late for that. It was
Yeah.
too late.
They know that.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, um, so I mean, on the day that, like that morning, they didn't even tell me that he was dying.
Yeah.
And going back to the court order, she was very arrogant, and she said
Mhm.
to me, "Well, you can talk to your lawyer and have him." It was a woman lawyer. And I retorted back to her and said, "Well, I'm sorry, but it's not a man. I have a woman lawyer." you know, because she was a woman and she was really bashing my lawyer. And so then that the day he died, they didn't say like that he was getting worse or anything like that. They had him on palliative care, which I don't even know if I knew that.
Mm.
So, but
They didn't
anyhow,
have a palliative care meeting with you?
no, they never met with me.
Mm.
I, and I tried to also get an advocate the whole time Andy was in the hospital. I was never provided an advocate, and I tried.
Mm.
So, um, so the night that Andy died on January 6th, we at first only I could go in to see Andy, and then it started where two people could go in. Um, and so my kids had to trade off because they wanted me to, always be in with Andy. And so that night, my daughter Katrina went in with me to the hospital. She took her laptop. I mean, yes, Andy was unconscious because he was on the paralytic drugs and all that,
Sure.
but they loved the Philadelphia Flyers, and the game was on that night. So the hearing is the last sense to go. So you
Yeah.
don't know what our loved ones heard.
Right.
And so Katrina took the laptop in, and, she was going to watch the game, well, listen to the game with her dad. And as soon as we got in there, the nurse that Andy had that night actually was a friend of my daughter-in-law's. They had worked together.
Hmm.
And as soon as I walked through the door, she said, "Mrs. Smith, you better call your son and daughter in law because he's not going to make it through the night." And Katrina and I got there maybe 6. He was gone by shortly after 7. Yeah, we weren't even told. Not for, and we would have not been able to have. Not our youngest daughter chose not to be there. She just didn't want to see her dad die.
Yeah.
But my daughter had come up from West Virginia, her and her husband, and they stayed here while Andy was in the hospital. And if we hadn't known the nurse, all my kids wouldn't have been allowed to be in with them.
Right. Exactly.
So because she knew my son and daughter-in-law, she allowed them to come, which is horrible. And I don't remember this, but my sister-in-law, Andy's sister, the kids and I were at her place for Christmas brunch the day on Christmas. I got a call from the doctor. My memory, I don't know if it's because of the trauma. I don't know. I don't remember this. She said that when the doctor called me, and I put it on speaker so the family could hear, she said that the doctor wanted me to pull the plug on Andy on Christmas Day.
Mm. Wow.
And I was trusting God, and God, you've got this. And, I mean, we kept praying for healing and all, but God had a different healing for Andy.
And so he did not die on Christmas Day. Um,
No, he died the 6th.
the
So,
6th of January. Yes.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's hard for me because with our youngest daughter, she had a bilateral cephalocele when we adopted her. We didn't even know that. So she had 2 major surgeries at the Hershey
mm,
Medical Center. They did wonderful.
yeah.
Andy had a perforated colon back in 2017. Had I not got him to the hospital when I did, it was on a Sunday right before Christmas,
Sure.
he would have died, and they
Yeah.
saved him. It's
Yeah.
just that it's very hard that they saved Andy back in 2000, I think it was 2017, and then they murdered him
Yeah.
a couple of years later. It's just it's an
It's such a,
enigma, and it's hard. And January 6th, and the in 21, Andy was down in Washington D.C. as a patriot.
mm-hmm.
1 year later to the day,
He
he's dead.
died. Wow.
I mean, I may never know the answer to that one this side of heaven, but It does make you wonder.
Yeah. It's almost it's like a switch it's like a switch flipped, and so like we hear it a lot too where people are they go to a hospital, they have either regularly for something or there's an incident that, the hospital they were, they were saved at that hospital, and then like you wouldn't think that they would, turn around and kill you with a protocol
Mm-hmm.
and just this path because you're
Mm-hmm.
unvaccinated, which has nothing to do with treatment, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so interesting. So, is there anything else about the hospital experience that you're thinking we missed? I think you got it all, but
I think so. I mean, my children are very techy, so
yeah,
they actually wanted like an Alexis,
yeah,
to put on his bedside table. So that was before Andy was comatose,
yeah,
and, would be a way that we could communicate with him.
yeah,
And of course, they're not going to allow that because then you
yeah.
could have heard what was going on.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Every time. Um,
my
which
famous slogan when Andy was in the hospital with COVID and the protocols was, "It doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense."
exactly.
Andy was a very I'm a I'm a feeler. Andy was very logical.
Hmm.
He put logic behind everything, and he was intelligent. I mean, he might you want to break till for
Is that
my
are you
dogs
being,
are barking.
oh yeah. You're not being robbed. It's just
No, no,
they're
no, no, no. There's somebody's going by. So I didn't know if you want to interrupt or not.
yeah,
But
okay.
oh no, what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense and
It
he was
doesn't make
doing
sense. Yeah.
logic.
One night, the same nurse that found the POA document, signed
Mhm.
document, and it was notarized. Um, she was talking to me, and she was, giving Andy care and stuff. She did not know what cerebral palsy was. This
Really?
is an RN.
Wow.
I think they looked at Andy, they saw his handicapped hand,
Hmm.
and they didn't think he was worth living. What
Right.
did they do in Germany?
Yeah, exactly.
In Germany, they exterminated the handicapped people.
The handicap
And
and
Andy had a brilliant mind. I mean, he was brilliant. I mean, he loved history and math, and he
so do
just
you think he was treated differently both because he was unvaccinated and because of his handicap then?
I wonder.
Yeah.
And I asked already in one of our, I guess it was a C19 Widows and Widowers group
Yeah.
already. It appears that spirit-filled Christians and patriots were the ones they targeted.
Yes.
I
I
haven't found
I think that's
anybody
true.
that's,
I think
I'm
that's
sure there are, but I have not found anybody that isn't a Christian and wasn't a patriot.
very
So,
few, very few.
yeah.
There's a few, but
Yeah,
very
but
few.
it's the predominantly it
Yeah,
was the patriots.
yeah, right, mostly. And yeah, and I wonder a little bit if that's because we are we're typically the people who
Well, we're no compliant.
yeah,
We'll
we're
break the
yeah, we don't
we'll break the rules if it's necessary to be a patriot.
right.
I
And
guess is
but
how
for
you
the
say it.
most part we respect authority and respect
Yeah,
rules and
yeah,
things like that, and we're not expecting that those institutions will be turned against us, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, um, yeah, so, I mean that makes sense that. So when you were going through all this, you had a woman at church that was kind of warning people what to do, what not to do. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, when were you were saying it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when Andy died, did you know right away that they killed him, or
No,
did it take
no.
a while?
What brought my attention to it was, whoop, I got my finger in the way, was my mom was in her 80s.
Hmm.
And when the convoy, the truckers convoy was
Yeah,
going, I
yeah,
think, didn't that start in like in the West and then it moved
yeah,
across?
yeah. It's a
And it
Texas
was
thing. Yeah.
in Hagerstown, Maryland,
Hmm.
which is about an hour and a half for us from
Yeah.
here in Pennsylvania. My mom just wanted to go to that so bad. And so my youngest sister and I took her down.
Oh,
And she was kind of a celebrity because she was on a scooter.
yeah.
And they just loved on her being an older lady. And they were fascinated that, here's this older woman that was really into it. And then my sister and my mom sat off to the side at one point, and my sister and I went to see some of the vendors. And
Yeah.
we went. I wasn't even going to go this one place, but I felt I was supposed to. So they actually were like making having signatures to Trump, about 2020 and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I said to this one guy about what happened to Andy,
Uh-huh.
that he died in a hospital. He said, "Well, you need to talk to that guy over there." And I am drawing a blank. He's a people reporter, you know, oh gosh, I can't think of his
A
name.
people reporter?
He's a private citizen that does the news. Citizen journalist, I forget his first name. He goes by something citizen journalist. Anyhow, he said, "Come over here and sit down." So I sat down with him
Uh-huh.
and he started interviewing me,
Uh-huh.
and he knew exactly where the medical center was.
Yeah.
I didn't even, I don't think I told him it was from Hershey, and then he knew
Yeah.
that it was Hershey Medical Center.
Yeah.
And he also said to me, "Oh, Masonic Lodge 666." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
So that's the lodge in Hershey,
Wow.
666.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but
Interesting.
he interviewed me, and there is an interview of me with him. Richard, citizen journalist. That's who he
Richard
was.
Citizen Journalist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but
So
he
that's
interviewed me, and then he, made it public. And
so that's when you kind of knew you were
he
like,
said to me about being murdered, and that was my first realization that he was murdered.
mhm,
So
right. And did you at the time did you have the medical records or did you get those later?
I got him later. No, I
Yeah.
got him later. I didn't. I didn't know to get them at that
Yeah.
time,
Sure. Right.
but I
Right.
do have them. I can't look through them. I
Yeah.
still haven't looked through them. I just need to get somebody to read them and go through them. It's just
Sure. Sure. Send them to me, Deb.
Mhm.
If you have them in electronic format, send
I
them to me.
don't, but
Oh, you
Jack and I
don't?
were talking, and he would help me do that too.
To
So
get it scanned, all
yeah.
scanned in.
Hmm.
If it's in a PDF, I can.
Yeah, I
It's
do have
easier.
that. I was given the PDF and my records. So
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
another woman from church that she had COVID in October, and her family were all vaccinated, and they were totally against their mom that she wasn't vaccinated. And then
Mm.
she ended up in the hospital. Um, and she says she was given remdesivir too. Now it could have been a placebo. I don't know.
Well,
But
it didn't kill everyone, but that
yeah.
well, also it depends on when it was because some people initially in 2020 got remdesivir with hydroxychloroquine, which negated the effects of remdesivir,
Okay. Yeah.
gave a false sense that remdesivir was working, and then that's how they rammed through the FDA approval.
Hmm.
You know, they
But her children wouldn't even come to see her. And Andy
Oh,
and I would like take orange juice and different things to her. And
that's a shame.
the last time we were at her house, she was really in bad shape. And Andy goes, Deb, you've got to call the ambulance. I'm like, but I don't know her that well. That's really a family call.
Yeah,
But she ended up, her son did call and she did go to the hospital. So, but
yeah,
she said, Debbie, if I hadn't experienced myself, I wouldn't believe what Andy went through.
that's right.
But I was mistreated. She couldn't wear a mask because she hyperventilates when she has a mask.
Hmm.
And outside her room, they would say, um, she doesn't wear a mask. She's gonna kill people, you
Yeah.
know.
That's why
And
it's so
so
that's why it's so important for survivors to come forward and tell their stories too, because you know, some people don't believe they don't believe it, and they're like, "Oh, it's just misplaced grief or whatever." But
mhm.
I mean, us survivors, I'm a survivor. Us survivors n- know what happened, the
Mhm.
mistreatment and
Mhm.
the abuse, and the
Mhm.
we know it was
Well, with,
genocide.
with this older friend having been in the hospital with COVID,
Mhm.
she could testify to what she
Yeah,
experienced and
exactly.
the things that I was going through with Andy. Because she was so sore, she wasn't bathed
Yeah,
properly, and so.
yeah. It took me a long time to recover from that too. I lost
Mm,
hair, and yeah, it the sores and the yeah, all
mm.
that from lack of yeah,
I
they treated
also
me like
remember, now this was when Andy was still on the BiPAP, and he was so thirsty,
yeah.
and he took his urinal and kept banging the railing because he wanted
Mhm.
their attention. And that was the night that he had one. I mean, it was one of the nights he had the mean nurse,
Yeah.
and she's like, well, he keeps begging because he wants something to drink. He can't drink on a BiPAP. I have
Mhm.
friends that are on a BiPAP, and they said there was no reason he couldn't be
Yeah,
given a drink,
right.
even to be fed. They
Yeah,
didn't feed him either.
yeah,
So, and I didn't know that till sometime later. I mean, I
yeah. How are
didn't I
you
didn't
gonna
know. I
how
mean,
are you
you
gonna get
assume that they would be taken care of, you
right?
know.
How are you gonna get better if you don't have any nutrition and any water that kills that
Yeah.
just
And he was kept from his wife, me, and my kids, and Andy adored us. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine what must have been going through his mind, that why is Deb and the kids not here?
yeah,
I don't know what they told him. I don't know what they told him.
exactly. Um,
So,
so let's talk a little bit about the impacts that this has had on your life and your family's life.
well, one thing is, let's see, it'll be 2 years in August. I went to a new nephrologist.
Mhm,
I only have one kidney,
mhm,
and I couldn't no longer go to Penn State. I couldn't do that. I
yeah,
just couldn't. So I asked my family doctor to go somewhere else, and I did. And my son went with me. That was August of 24. Yeah.
mhm,
And they said to me, in 3 to 6 years, you're going to be on kidney dialysis. They gave me did blood work that day. When I went in for the next appointment, they said, you'll be definitely be on dialysis by Thanksgiving or Christmas at the latest.
mhm.
I did ask my doctor, my nephrologist, so how much does grief have an effect on our bodies? I believe, because of my grief, that that's why my kidney deteriorated. I don't have proof, But
Yeah.
they couldn't deny it either,
Yeah,
because the
exactly.
doctor said your cortisol levels are high when you're in grief.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it makes sense. That makes
and
sense.
yeah, and
And the,
like I said, my husband so much wanted an Asian daughter, and she's now 24. She's getting married in July. She will not have her daddy to walk her down the aisle. That really hurts.
yeah.
My other daughter did, and my son, he was there for my son's wedding, but he won't, his dream, he won't be there for Sarah.
Yeah. You won't be there
Mhm.
for the youngest to get
And
married.
my daughter, my middle daughter, she put together a book of pictures of Andy. And from the time he was he was a baby to the time he died. And
Mhm.
it ends on the back page by saying, the one thing that he always she actually did this book up for our first grandchild, Ollie,
Mhm.
so that he would know who his grandpa was.
Okay. Mhm.
And then she also gave me a copy too. But on the last page, it says the thing that he never got to do was to be a grandpa. That
Oh,
really hurts, because we were often talked about, oh, and we're grandma and grandpa, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Now I'm alone, and it sucks. It just,
that does. That
yeah,
yes. That
you
does.
know, that we can't be grandma and grandpa together. That's something he really wanted to be. And our first grandchild was born, he died in January, and our first grandchild was born in November.
Oh,
Oh, and now since then, I have another granddaughter and another granddaughter on the way. So, and he's never got to see that.
yeah. So if somebody's watching this and they're like, "Hey, this sounds familiar," I feel like my loved one did not die of of COVID. It
Hmm.
sounds very suspicious. What would you're very involved in you come to the support group on Monday and all that. What would you tell them to do?
Well, I would encourage them to, connect with the Betrayal Project. I was the one that got Jack and Sharon involved in it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and the way that I met Sharon was Doug Mastriana was running for governor at the time, and
oh,
there was different Facebook platforms for him.
yeah,
And so we actually, I don't even know that he was running. I don't think he was even running for governor at that point. He was very much to have stuff open, and
mhm,
spoke out against the protocols and the closings and all that. And he was in Palmyra at a restaurant that got fined like $10,000 because they
mm,
wouldn't close. And he happened to be there was a different politicians were at this, and citizens and stuff. And Andy and I got our picture taken with Doug, and
mhm,
then later I put the picture of Andy and I and Doug on one of the Facebook platforms,
mhm,
and said, my husband was murdered by the hospital protocols. If your loved one also was, reach out to me. And I did have a few people, but Sharon was the one that followed
yeah,
through.
right,
So, and
interesting.
then Jack, I happened to meet him at a widower's Valentine thing,
Oh, okay,
about 2 years ago, something like that. So.
interesting. That's good. That I mean, I think it is. It's super important when people find us and then they meet all the I mean, even in the Facebook groups, there's like 2,000 people in some of those
Hmm.
groups. Um, it makes a difference because they're connecting with people that understand what they went through. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so in kind of in closing, tell us about, one or two of your favorite memories of Andy.
Mm. Our back in November, right before Christmas in 2021, um, we went down to the Dominican Republic. Um, my two oldest children had went through college and then they got married, and we just hadn't had a family vacation for a couple years. And um our daughter said they had been down in Dominican Republic. They found a good deal for a resort, and they came home and said, "Hey, mom and dad, you guys ought to go." And then we're like, "Well, why don't we all go?" So all our kids went, and their spouses. And I mean, we had a wonderful time. I mean, never thinking that that was our last family trip.
Right.
So,
Yeah. There you guys are
yeah.
in the Dominican Republic.
Hmm. Well, we had to get swabbed down there before we.
Yeah.
Remember how you couldn't get back in the United States
Yeah.
unless you were
Yes, you did.
swabbed? Well, we
Yep.
were swabbed and we had the paperwork. We got back to the New York. They never even checked anything.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Interesting.
They never even looked at our paper. So,
Interesting.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
with Andy, just the missing, just like going out for coffee, or
Yeah.
we would just go for out for coffee and split a piece of pie, or go out to eat together. That was
Yeah.
our thing. And
Sure.
it's just not the same. It's just, I can go out and eat by myself. I mean, some people, they can't, but I
Yeah.
mean, I always ain't. I went other times by myself, even when Andy was living, so I can do that. But
Yeah.
I miss that, or just like the other Sunday, I was coming home from church and it was such a beautiful day. And I was like, oh, just wish Andy was here that we could just take a drive.
Yeah.
It's just those simple things that you really
Yeah.
miss,
It's the
and he
little
loved his
things.
kids. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Andy wasn't a materialistic person. I always say, Andy would have been content in a cardboard box as long as I was there and the kids. I mean, that's just who he was. He
Yeah. It
just
was
he
family.
just was not a materialistic person. You know, I don't know
Well,
that I would have wanted that, but he would have been happy.
yeah. He would have been happy.
Yeah.
Well, um, I appreciate you telling Andy's story, and I want to encourage people who watch this story to share this story, because we need to get as many stories out there to the masses so that people, there's always this element of people think, I knew something was wrong. Now it's confirmed because they hear it from other people. So share the stories. The stories being shared save lives, but it also helps people find answers to some things that they've been struggling with regard to that time period. And also share them because it's still happening. It's,
Mm,
it's May of 2026, and they're still using remdesivir and it's still happening. So very, very important. Make sure you go to idonotconsentform.com and make sure you have your I do not consent form. Follow the directions. There's new directions on the website, so follow the directions to a T. Use as directed. And let's see what else. And if people out there want to help support our mission, you can donate on the website. If you want to volunteer, if you have skills, even if you don't have skills, if you just got time, we'll take time, talent, and treasure. But
mm,
go to our website, and there's a volunteer form that's got our committees. And if you need support, there is a form. There is a form. There is a place under Get Involved, that is our support group. So sign up. So you can fill the little just a little thing. It's got like 5 or 6 pieces of information, and we can get you added to the support groups. They really do make a difference. Thank you again, Debbie, and appreciate your openness to
thank
telling
you
the
for
story.
asking me.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.